On November 24, 1971, a man jumped out of a Boeing 727 into a freezing storm with $200,000. He vanished into thin air and his body was never found. It was November 24, 1971. The weather in Portland, Oregon was cold and rainy. Thanksgiving was the next day, so the airport was busy with people traveling to see their families. Among the crowd, a man walked calmly toward the counter of Northwest Orient Airlines. He looked like an ordinary businessman in his 40s. He was wearing a dark suit, a white shirt, a black tie, and a black raincoat. He was also carrying a heavy black briefcase. He walked to the ticket agent and bought a one-way ticket to Seattle, Washington. When asked for his name, he replied calmly, "Dan Cooper." Within an hour, he boarded Flight 305, a Boeing 727 airplane. Cooper took his seat at the very back of the plane, in seat 18C. He was a quiet man. After the plane took off, he ordered a drink and paid with cash. Shortly after departure, he handed a small folded note to Florence Schaffner, a young flight attendant who was sitting near him. At first, Florence thought the man was just giving her his phone number, so she put the note into her purse without reading it. Cooper noticed this and leaned closer to her. He whispered in a calm but serious voice, "Miss, you better look at that note." "I have a bomb." Florence was shocked. Her heart began to beat fast, but she stayed calm. She opened the note. It was written in neat capital letters. The note said that he had a bomb in his briefcase and that she must sit next to him. Florence sat down quietly in the empty seat beside Cooper. She asked him to show her the bomb to prove he was telling the truth. Cooper slowly opened his briefcase. Inside, Florence saw 8 red cylinders tied together with wires and a large battery. It looked real. Cooper closed the briefcase and told her his demands. He wanted $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck ready in Seattle to refuel the plane. Florence wrote down the demands and walked quickly to the cockpit to inform the pilot. In the cockpit, Captain William Scott received the terrifying news. He immediately contacted air traffic control in Seattle and the airline management. The news spread fast, reaching the Federal Bureau of Investigation, known as the FBI. The government decided to cooperate with the hijacker to save the 36 passengers on board. The pilot announced over the speaker that the plane would circle around Seattle for a while because of a minor mechanical issue. In reality, they were waiting for the police and the FBI to gather the ransom money and the parachutes. While the plane circled in the dark sky, Cooper stayed completely calm. He did not yell or threaten anyone. He put on his dark sunglasses. The flight attendants noticed that he knew the local area well from the air. He looked out the window and recognized a military base below. He also seemed to know a lot about airplanes. He knew that the Boeing 727 had a special feature, a staircase at the very back under the tail that could be opened during flight. This made the crew wonder if he was an experienced pilot or a former military man. Down on the ground, the FBI was working frantically. They collected $200,000, all in $20 bills. They recorded the serial numbers of every single bill so they could track the money later if Cooper tried to spend it. They also found 4 military-grade parachutes. By 5:24 p.m., everything was ready. The pilot was told that the demands had been met. Cooper was informed, and he gave permission for the plane to land at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. The passengers still had no idea that a man with a bomb was sitting right behind them. The airplane touched down in Seattle at 5:43 p.m. The sun had already set, and a heavy rain was falling. Cooper ordered the pilot to taxi the plane to a dark and isolated section of the runway. He wanted to make sure no police snipers could see inside. He also demanded that all the cabin lights be turned off. An airline official approached, the plane carrying the heavy canvas bag filled with money and the 4 parachutes. Cooper allowed the flight attendant to open the front door and receive the items. Once Cooper verified that the money and parachutes were on board, he kept his promise. He ordered the release of all 36 passengers and 2 flight attendants. The passengers walked off the plane into the rainy night, relieved but confused. They only found out about the hijacking after they reached the airport terminal. Now, only 5 people remained on the plane. Cooper, the pilot, the co-pilot, a flight engineer, and 1 flight attendant named Tina Mucklow. Cooper ordered the plane to be refueled immediately. However, the fuel truck experienced a technical problem, which made Cooper angry. He warned that if the refueling wasn't done fast, he would blow up the plane. The workers rushed, and the refueling was finally completed. Cooper then gave the pilots instructions for their next flight. He wanted them to fly toward Reno, Nevada. He gave very specific rules. The plane must fly below 10,000 feet. The landing gear must remain down, and the wing flaps must be set at a specific angle to keep the plane flying very slowly. The pilots knew this would be a highly dangerous flight in such bad weather. At 7:40 p.m., the Boeing 727 took off into the stormy night sky. Two military fighter jets followed silently from far behind, trying to stay hidden in the dark clouds. Cooper ordered Tina Mucklow, the remaining flight attendant, to go into the cockpit and lock the door behind her. He wanted to be completely alone in the passenger cabin. Tina looked back one last time. She saw Cooper tying something around his waist. It was the heavy canvas bag containing the $200,000. He had also put on two of the parachutes. A few minutes later, around 8 p.m., a warning light flashed in the cockpit. The pilots saw that the aft stairs, the staircase at the back of the plane, had been opened. The cold air rushed into the cabin. The pilot spoke over the intercom, asking Cooper if he needed any help. Cooper's voice came back through the radio. It was the last word anyone would ever hear from him. He simply said no. At 8:13 p.m., the pilots felt a sudden change in the air pressure. The tail of the airplane lifted up sharply. The pilot had to fight the controls to keep the plane steady. They realized that Cooper had just jumped off the stairs into the freezing night. He leaped into a violent storm with heavy rain, thick clouds, and zero visibility. Below him was a massive, rugged forest area near the Lewis River in Washington state. The temperature at that altitude was below freezing. Cooper vanished into the dark void, leaving behind his black tie and two unused parachutes on the seat. The next morning, the FBI launched one of the biggest and most expensive manhunts in American history. It was named Operation NORJAK. Hundreds of police officers, FBI agents, and soldiers entered the thick forests of Washington state. They searched through deep mud, heavy snow, and dense trees. Helicopters and airplanes flew over the area for weeks, looking for any sign of a parachute or a body. They checked every cabin, lake, and river in the region. The agents believed that no human could survive a jump like that. Cooper had jumped into a freezing storm with no coat, wearing only a suit. He jumped over a mountain forest filled with tall trees where a parachute could easily get caught. If he hit the ground at high speed, he would have died instantly. Even if he survived the fall, the freezing temperature and wild animals would have killed him within hours. Yet despite searching for months, the police found absolutely nothing. No clothes, no parachute, and no body. It was as if Dan Cooper had completely evaporated into thin. Ere the FBI began investigating thousands of suspects across the United States. They checked anyone with military paratrooper experience or a criminal record. They checked the serial numbers of the ransom money at banks, stores, and casinos all over the world, but not a single $20 bill from the hijacking ever appeared in circulation. The mystery grew deeper every year. Who was this man? How did he plan such a perfect crime, and where did he go? 9 years passed without any clues. Then, in February 1980, an 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was vacationing with his family on a beach near the Columbia River, just down the river from where Cooper had jumped. Brian was digging in the wet sand to make a campfire when his hand hit something strange. It was a package wrapped in rubber bands. When his parents opened it, they found 3 bundles of old degraded cash. The FBI confirmed it. It was $5,800 of the ransom money. The serial numbers matched perfectly. This discovery brought more questions than answers. The money was found miles away from the suspected landing area. Had Cooper dropped it during his fall? Did he bury it there before dying? Or did the river wash it down from the mountains? The rest of the $194,200 was never found. In 2016, after 45 years of continuous investigation, the FBI officially closed the case. They announced that they would no longer actively investigate it unless new physical evidence was found. Today, the story of D.B. Cooper remains the only unsolved skyjacking in commercial aviation history. Dan Cooper became a legend. Some believe he died in the forest that cold night. Others believe he survived, changed his identity, and lived a wealthy life in South America. He created the perfect mystery, took the secret to his grave, and left the world wondering forever about the man who jumped into the dark night.